The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello and good morning. I'm Carly Rogers, Marketing and Education Manager for IAPD. Thank you for joining today's webinar presentation, Perception is Reality. I'm happy to welcome back Angela Rodenberg as our presenter. Angela has more than 13 years experience working in B2B and B2C environments, specializing in branding, sales team integration, web development, and digital marketing. Working as the Marketing Director for Redwood Plastics Corporation, a member of Prisma Plastics International Incorporated, she has created many successful initiatives to help propel the company as innovative application leaders in plastics distribution. Angela is an active member at IAPD. She volunteers on the Environmental Committee. She is Vice Chair of the Marketing Committee and Communications Coordinator for our Women in Plastics Common Interest Group. She's also a participant in the Canadian Common Interest Group. She runs a successful marketing agency, Ladder Up Incorporated, and owns an online sugar cookie bakery, Sugar Cookies and Confections. Before I turn it over to Angela, I wanted to remind you of a couple things. If you have a question during the presentation, feel free to submit it using the Questions tab on your webinar toolbar. She will answer those for you at the end of the presentation, but I certainly don't want you to forget your question if you think of it during the presentation, so feel free to submit that. You'll also receive a link to her presentation slides. That link will be available. There will be a survey that you're going to get about an hour after the webinar ends. Once you complete the survey, there will be a link to the slides. I'm also recording the presentation today, and probably early next week I will email you directly the recording. It'll also be available on IAPD's website. So with that, I would now like to turn the presentation over to Angela Rodenberg.
Thank you, Carly, and hi, everybody. Thank you for signing up for the webinar today. So the goal of my presentation is basically just to make everybody a little more aware of all the different online platforms that are available for us and give you a little insight of how influential we can be using them. So I did my best to include some information that will be valuable to an array of different aptitudes in regards to digital marketing. So some points might be a little obvious to some of you, and some of them might be beyond your scope of responsibilities, but it's really just meant to give you a better understanding of all the different new kinds of customers that are coming up and a variety of ways that we can get their attention. If there is any subject that anybody wants to talk about further later on or want some more information about, please feel free to email me or give me a call. This is only about a 40-minute presentation or so, and there's lots of data and resources out there that I haven't included in this presentation, so sometimes I'll just be giving tips on software and things that you can do and research on your own. But if you want some more information, just feel free to email me afterwards. So I wanted to do this presentation because together we have a lot of challenges against us in regards to what the metal guys and the vinyl guys and the glass guys are all putting out there from a standpoint of promoting their industries. And so we all want the same things. We all want to increase demand. We all want to attract new talent. We all want to educate our customers and prevent unwanted legislation. And in order to really make a dent and change the way that people perceive plastics, we'll all have to kind of band together to do that. So not every one person can do it on their own. And obviously we can't make a huge dent with just these 5 bullet points, but this is just a starting point that we can look at our companies and we can look at how we're branding ourselves and maybe make some changes along the way to have our staff collaborate and share some knowledge and get some more content out there so that we're front of mind for a lot of companies that are looking for information about plastics, and just making sure that the metal guys and the glass guys and the environmentalists aren't the ones that are coming up in search instead of the information that we're putting out there. So just as an industry, just doing a better job of promoting us and how people perceive us. So, how do people perceive us? I know that a lot of you are probably looking at some of these slides and thinking, okay, that's all single-use plastics and that's not really us. But when you Google plastics and when you see plastics in the news, this is what comes up. So it's up to us to educate people and make sure they understand the differences between industrial plastics and single-use plastics, but also just the fact that we are doing something to try to make the world a better place with plastics and invent cool things. And the industry is innovative, and there's lots of opportunities for our industry. So what do we want it to look like? There's a lot of really, really cool inventions and technology that's come out in recent times that have plastics in the forefront and that are being used. So the doodle pen is a new invention or product that just came out. It's kind of a little handheld extruder. Want one of those for Christmas. The phone is something that's obviously coming out soon. It's projected onto your skin. It's just a little bracelet. Lots of cool architectural projects coming out, lots of inventions in regards to with cars and reducing the weight. So these are the kind of things as well as your own innovations that you're coming up with in your companies that we really want to promote and put out there. So what's in it for you? So obviously we all care about sales. We all care about our companies doing well and ourselves doing well. But there's lots of opportunities from an online standpoint that a lot of us are doing really well at. I'm not throwing anyone under the bus here. Like, there's lots of you that are doing a great job promoting yourselves online. But there's a lot of us that have room for improvement or have things that we could do to sort of get people to better embrace and feel more comfortable doing business with plastic companies. So first and foremost is your brand and your brand perception. And everybody can relate to a positive brand perception that they have about something. If you think about watching TV and a cute little Oreo commercial comes on and the dad's sitting with his son and they're dunking the Oreos and it gives you the warm and fuzzies. And so you've got this really good brand perception of that product. And it's no different for our business. Obviously, the warm and fuzzies don't necessarily have to be there, but it does have to emanate that we can be trusted and we are dependable and we produce a quality product. So why are first impressions so important? So recently I was in Anaheim with my family. I went for a run, obviously on the wrong side of town, and came across this motel. Now, they're obviously trying to influence people that don't have drug and alcohol problems to stay here. However, my first impression was obviously that they have some kind of alcohol and drug problem. So first impressions aren't always right. They're not always nice, but they are what they are. And you have to kind of be realistic as to how people are perceiving you. So when it comes to your first impression, many of you might think it's your sales guy that's your first impression, and sometimes it is. I'm not discrediting the fact that your outside guys are out there and they're beating the pavement and they're doing their job. But what I am saying is most of the time it's going to be your website that's your first impression. And if it isn't your first impression, it's likely the second one after that outside sales guy hands over his business card and someone looks up your company. So people are doing research, they're understanding the product, they're understanding pricing, they're doing a lot of research on their own before they're even talking to you. So having a good homepage and having a good online presence is paramount in being successful in the future just because it's your storefront. So you have to ask yourself if you look trustworthy, do you look dependable, do you look knowledgeable, and what's your USP? So a USP is your unique selling proposition. It's basically what makes you unique compared to your competition. So, and I think that many of you might be thinking, oh, we've got a knowledgeable sales staff, and oh, we've got lots of inventory, and oh yeah, well, we do fab. So those are things that all of us are offering, or all of us are saying that we offer, not necessarily as making you very unique. So really stepping back and thinking about who your target market is, what's going to identify with them is going to make your message unique. So just speaking of the internet and how many people are actually using it and whether or not you should care, if there's anyone on the line that doesn't have a website, I'd be really shocked. But unless you're selling to people in grass huts in the middle of nowhere, it's really important that you have some kind of online presence. From a world standpoint, about 40% of the world is on the internet. So it's just an important thing that you need to understand. It's growing, it's going to continue to grow, and whether or not you're in the US or you're selling internationally, it's something that you have to understand, and it's being used in a huge way. So what's a bad example of an online presence? So I didn't want to handpick anyone within our industry and throw anybody on here as an example, but you know who you are. If your website looks anything like this, you might want to consider an update. Also, if your website hasn't been updated in the last, I would say, 7 years or so, guaranteed you need it to be updated just from an SEO standpoint and a searchability standpoint. There's just been too many updates and algorithm updates since then, so it just needs to be updated. This company is a X-ray company in the Northwest. I was confused when I first got to it because I honestly thought it was a marine application website with the little puzzle pieces that are icons there. I thought they were anchors. Super confusing, bad use of color. Really doesn't speak to me as far as what it is they sell or how they're solving any problems for me. So those are things that you want to watch out for. This is another example. I thought this was a machining company when I first went to this site, and perhaps the massive sprockets. It's actually the New York Occupational Health Center, and I'm sure everyone knows what CNYCOSH stands for. Another site, very confusing, bad use of color, really not really considering who their audience is at all. So both of these sites right now, by the way, they're live sites, so they're actually using these sites right now. So it just goes to show you that there's a lot of people that aren't investing in their online presence. So what are some things you can watch for? So outdated appearance, obviously, is demonstrated by the last two examples. Your logo being too large is a mistake a lot of people make. I realize that your logo is something you're really proud of. You spent a lot of money and you spent a lot of time on it, but nobody cares about your logo. It's not selling anything. It's not solving anybody's problem. Should it be consistent up against all of your social platforms? Yes, of course. It should be consistent everywhere you go. However, no, it doesn't speak to anybody. So just don't give it too much real estate. It's just not worth it. There's some other bullet points there that you need to consider when it comes to revising your online presence and your website. And just make sure that your homepage is where you spend the most time designing and considering. So you basically have to communicate with your customers and with any prospective clients or any talent that you want to recruit. Those people are looking at your website and they're making decisions within 10 seconds. If they stay longer than 10 seconds, they're probably going to stay on your homepage for about 2 minutes, but you'll lose most people within 2 to 5 seconds. So just something to consider. Mobile is also becoming a really huge consideration when it comes to your online presence. Everybody, 30% of people that have a phone, it is a smartphone. I'll get into later as to how people are using their mobile phones and how much time people are actually spending on it. But it's of paramount importance that when you do redo your site, if you do, that you have it mobilely optimized, and that when you are sending out newsletters and things like that, that they are mobilely optimized for people to read them. You'll end up getting a huge drop-off, and you'll end up not getting nearly as much traffic as you could be getting if you didn't have a mobile site. So your website can be a valuable asset. And you know, speaking from an industry standpoint and us all banding together, if someone writes an article and it's a great article, it really discredits the article if the reader goes to the owner's website and the website doesn't speak to the customer or speak to that reader as well as the article did. So it kind of leaves this disconnect. So everything kind of has to work together for people to change their perception of things. So people are always searching on Google for answers, and it ends up promoting your company and getting people to come to you for answers, and that's why it ends up promoting and increasing leads. Inbound marketing also costs less than outbound marketing, so the more content you put out there that people will come to you for answers for, one, it increases the amount of people looking for you, but it also is just less expensive. So the other ways that marketing can create leads, it increases interest, it reduces their perception of risk, and it increases closing rates, especially if you're communicating offerings that are clear. So when people get confused, they ask questions, and it might turn into a lead, but it might not be what you do because you're not communicating things properly. It also can be a huge benefit to your sales staff and give them sales sheets and give them presentations and give them references to point people to so that they don't necessarily have to do all the talking. They can say, oh, yeah, there's some great references on our website. You know, go and have a look at your own leisure and get back to me when you can. So how can we do this as an industry together? Like I said before, really just not one article, or it's really just not one social media post or anything, one thing that's going to change. And so from your own company standpoint, promoting your own companies, but also us all coming together and promoting plastics in a positive way will really make change. So considering our target market and what really makes us unique and what people are going to be interested in, revising your website, having those social media platforms updated and engaging, and then having lots of content out there. So there are lots and lots and lots of places where you can post content, and lots of software programs that will help you post those content and make sure that your message gets out to more than one place and more than one customer. This little landscape, a couple years ago, you actually could decipher all of the different logos in it, and it just goes to show in the last couple of years how much things have blown up. So there's lots of opportunities for you and lots of different tools that you can use in order to make this easier for you. So what do people spend on marketing? Digital ad spending is predicted to be $204 billion by 2018. It was about $134 last year. Almost all of that money is spent in North America. And the reason why those two things are important is because it's just more clutter and it's more competition for us to go against. So if we start falling behind and not start spending the money and not start spending the time to publish content, it just means that something else and other things are going to go above us in search. So we want to make sure that we are aware of how much money is being poured into that, just so that we don't get covered over. Another point I wanted to bring up is that people are investing in customer experience. And what that means is that it's really not even good enough for you to just have a website anymore. It has to be interactive and it has to be fun for people. So customer experience means gaming, and it means making it fun from a standpoint of, if someone wants to build a material, it means they kind of want to build it themselves online, and they want an interactive way to do it themselves and have an interesting experience when they come to your platform online. So budgeting. Recently there was a conference with the Plastic News membership, and they did a survey in regards to how much money they spend on marketing. And their average was about 0.3%, which I would assume our association is around the same percentage. But in comparison to what B2B marketing companies are budgeting for this year, which is about 7.4%, it just goes to show you how far behind the plastics industry really is as far as spending money and investing in promoting our industry. The other point is that 50% of companies are planning an increase for 2015, and I wanted to point that out just from the fact that we're obviously getting into a positive situation from a standpoint of wanting to invest in our companies again, getting out of the recession. So most times when there is bad times, marketing is the first thing that's pulled, so that's obviously demonstrating a change. This is just to basically show where people are spending their digital ad money or advertising money. Television will always kind of be the same. It has the biggest conversion rate. You wouldn't think so with PPRing and things like that, but it actually is still the best way to reach out to your customers, why it costs so much money. Obviously, print is going down, and the bottom two graphs are basically just to illustrate where the market share is for people spending with digital ads within certain platforms, as well as on different social media platforms. So your website. So if you do your website, you have it redone, it looks really pretty, it's wonderful. The one thing that you always have to consider is whether or not it's searchable, because if you can't find it, it really doesn't matter how beautiful it is. So I won't get into all of the different strategies as far as how you increase your Google ranking and get on that first page. There's a lot of factors that have to do with that. But I wanted to include some software programs that you can use, which are those icons on the bottom, and there is many more that you can find. But what they'll do is they'll help you do a diagnostic on your site itself and give you some tools to help fix any problems that you have, and it'll suggest some things that you can do to your site, whether or not it's increasing the content or your backlinking or the the speed of your site, all those kinds of things are factors. One important update that's coming up soon is coming up on April 21st. Google's doing another algorithm update, which will massively affect your search results when someone's trying to find you on a mobile phone. So if you don't have a mobile site, you're going to see a lot of changes in your traffic after the 21st of April. So I wanted to get back to content again. You've probably heard me say this word a few too many times already. The reason why content is so important is because when anyone's on the internet, they're asking a question. So they're asking a question whether or not it's about, you know, the next movie star's next movie, or about, you know, what's the best way to fry an omelet. You know, even if it's just one word and someone puts in UHMW, they're asking something about UHMW. Where can I get it? Where can I find it? What's the coefficient of friction? They want information about that product. So if we don't have answers on the internet, it just means that we're going to fall behind the people that are putting answers on there, regardless if they're correct or not. So content is king as far as us being able to make a dent and be able to change people's perceptions of what plastics can do and their capabilities. What sales-enabled content is basically relating your content to selling to your customers. And why that's important, your salespeople are really a great resource for any kind of marketing content. Ask them questions. Ask them, okay, what's the pain point of this customer, or what's the pain point of this industry, or what are these people having trouble with? So when you're writing your content, if you're answering those questions that your sales guys know, or sales girls know, are problems, then it's just going to make your content that much more searchable, but also that much more relevant. And so people are going to look to you for answers in the future, and they're going to look for answers for you in regards to satisfying their needs when they want to buy a product. So that's exactly what sales-enabled content is. And marketing is just supposed to make selling easier. So when it comes to people searching for answers online, they find the answer on your blog, and then they reach out to you, and it just makes closing rates that much easier. The last point is just in regards to reviews. You can have reviews on your company listing on Google, but also if you have an e-commerce site and you want people to review your product, please make sure that if you do enable reviews, that you allow the negative reviews. You know, people aren't idiots. They know that if all you have is positive things, that you're filtering that, and it's just not realistic, and it's not giving those warm and fuzzies to them to be able to process. The people will actually still purchase when they know you're being genuine about what's being posted on your reviews. So reach. Just getting into the social media situation, I just wanted to put up this graphic. I thought it was interesting from a standpoint of how things can go viral and how everything can go back to your site and give you a lot of unique visitors. So when you create good content, it gets shared and it gets followed and it gets liked, and it basically reverts back to your website. So it can be a huge way to increase traffic at your site. And the best way you don't have to skew that information is if you put content that's actually relevant. So for all of you that are kind of rolling your eyes and thinking, oh God, I don't want to have to post what I'm having for lunch on my Twitter feed, who cares? That's really, really not what social's about at all. Social has to do with you listening to other people. It's not about you, it's about them, and it's about you answering questions. Even if you go onto Twitter, you can search RFQ. There's people posting RFQs and requests for quotes on Twitter itself. So there's lots of people asking questions. And what you really want to do when it comes to social is 80% of the time you want to be commenting on other people's things and answering questions, and 20% of the time you want to be talking about yourself. So it's not a place to broadcast things, it's a place for you to be interactive. So just a snapshot on couple social platforms. And the reason why I sort of wanted to show all the different active users on each of these platforms is because there is, your customers are on here. And even though they might not necessarily be in the frame of mind to be doing work, that's where they are. And so sometimes you have to be a little bit creative in how you post things and how you might do an ad on here. But regardless if they're in work mode or not, your customers are using these platforms. So it's just up to you to come up with a tagline or a header that's really going to speak to them whether they're working or not. And understanding the different platforms is obviously important. When you're looking at Pinterest, for instance, there's 82% of their users are female. So if your target market are mostly females, that might not be a platform that you want to invest your time in. YouTube is becoming a huge user-based thing, 1 billion users, 300 hours of videos, which basically just means there's a lot of cat videos out there. So I wanted to put up this slide not because it's really relevant for us, but there's just a lot of really cool apps out there. And like I said earlier, lots of people are using their phones all the time for different things. So people want instant gratification. They don't want to have to wait in traffic. They don't want to have to flip through the yellow pages. They want reviews, and they want to be able to know, okay, what's the best pizza place, and where is it, and why is it the best, and what are the ratings, and just be able to go. Booking a hotel room, same thing. They want to look at reviews. So it just goes to show you the way that people's expectations are changing and how much people are using their phones. And this is another example of how much people are using their mobile phones. There's just a ton of messages and pictures and things being sent on their phones every day. It's a huge eater of time. So having your site mobily optimized and having content that's mobily optimized is just paramount, because it's just going to grow as far as people using their phones. So I wanted to dive into LinkedIn a little bit, only because if you have no control over your website, if you have no control over your company's brand, all those kinds of things, what you do have control over is your own LinkedIn profile. So these are just some bullet points as far as how you might be able to jazz up your profile a little bit. LinkedIn will generate leads if you use it properly and you start commenting on people, posting things on the feed, and sharing experiences. Lots of people ask questions within the groups. So if you aren't participating in a lot of the groups, I would suggest you do that. And for those of you who haven't embraced LinkedIn yet, really think about it as that old Rolodex. That's really what it is. It's the new Rolodex. And the one thing I wanted to point out specifically was your pictures. So there's a lot of really awful pictures out there for people's LinkedIn profiles. The one key thing you really have to think about is your LinkedIn profile is kind of like your resume. So unless you'd staple this picture onto your resume to hand it in for your dream job, it shouldn't be on your LinkedIn profile. Everybody has a friend, so stand in front of a wall and get a nice picture taken. You really shouldn't have any kind of pictures of, you know, alcohol consumption or party time, or selfies can look really awful. One thing that was really prevalent with our industry was everyone seems to want to show off their trophy fish. Really impressive. I'm pretty sure nobody sells tackle, so not relevant at all to what you do. And the only thing with having a picture where you can't really see your face is it's doing you a disservice when you're meeting with someone you haven't met before. It's great to be able to connect on LinkedIn when you have a meeting with someone coming up that you've never seen before. It sways you away from that situation, that awkward situation of, you know, is that you? I don't know, is that you? Or, you know, wearing some red carnation and being able to figure out who at Starbucks it is that you're actually meeting. So if you have a great picture, it can help you in more than just how people perceive you. It can help from a meeting standpoint as well. So the next section is just about e-commerce and how that's growing. You know, when you think about 10 years ago, the only thing anyone would ever buy online is, you know, tickets to a show. So this is changing, and customer demands are changing. And everybody's aware of Amazon Supply and Grainger and all their successes, and it's just one more avenue that, you know, we need to invest in order to service customers and get people using plastics. So just by the numbers, even if someone doesn't necessarily use your e-commerce site, they're more likely to buy from you just because you have one. So if you're hesitant as far as putting up an e-commerce site, just know that you'll benefit from it regardless of the fact of anyone actually using it. And there's a misperception as well that nobody buys big items online, and that's just not the truth. Lots of people are totally fine with spending companies' money and using them online. What's interesting is that only 25% of B2B companies have an e-commerce site, so that just leaves opportunities for us. And another thing to consider is it can be a whole lot faster for someone to process their order online than it will be phoning in. You don't have people chit-chatting about what they did on the weekend, and which can kind of come to a detriment of the relationship. But if that's not what the buyer wants, making it easier for them is paramount. So just some trends for 2015 and where people are going and how they're building their sites. It's really all about the customer and what they want. It's way too easy for them to just go to somewhere else. So unless you make it easy for them, unless you have the inventory in stock, and unless you can deliver right away and they can have it exactly the way they want, they're just going to go somewhere else. So doing it half-assed is really not an option, and you're not going to see the biggest benefits unless you invest in it properly. And just the point that people's needs are changing. Having free shipping used to only be about used to be about 35%, and now it's almost half the sites offer free shipping. And the next slide is basically just talking about marketing automation and software tools. A lot of this is a lot of work, and I realize a lot of people don't have marketing staff and people to implement a lot of these things. These software options are just some ways that you can streamline some processes, get some content written that they'll highlight keywords that you should be including or not including. It will schedule posts for you later on. Lots of different tools that will just optimize things for you. Some of them are really, really pricey, software companies, but some of them are free. Hootsuite's free if you have up to 5 accounts. It's basically a social media post. So how do we get started? So getting back to us as an industry, the metal guys, the glass guys, the vinyl guys, they all have campaigns. They all have things that they're doing to better promote their industries. And we just really need to get on board and start promoting our industry. It'd be really nice if someone puts in Google, "Are plastics safe for the environment?" and something we wrote comes up, and that's just not the case right now. So unless we all sort of band together and we all start creating content and we all start upping our game a little bit and looking the part and looking attractive to people that have just graduated. Most people that have just graduated, they want to work for a sustainable company. They don't want to look for someone that's raping the environment. So, and it's up to us to change that. So there's, like I said before, it's not just about your website. It's not just about social media accounts. All these things have to work together for us to really make an impact. And the last point is basically that you have to measure your impact. So the wonderful thing about the web and digital platforms is that if something is not working, you can take it down, you can revise it. It's not the old school, I printed 5,000 catalogs and there's a spelling mistake on page 5, and oh God, we just have to live with it for the next 5 years. So it's really easy for you to switch and make changes. You have to be flexible, and you have to be really aware of what it is that is speaking to your customer and what isn't, and be okay with changing that. So that's it for me. So if anybody has any questions, I think we have some time to do that.
Wonderful. Thank you, Angela. Our first question is, not enough white space. Doesn't white space mean wasted space? Or what is the benefit of having extra white space?
Okay, so white space helps bring the eye to what's important. So if you have way too much content, way too much text and pictures on your site, when someone first goes to their homepage, they don't know where to go. They don't know where they're supposed to be looking. So if you have a statement that's very important, you want to make sure you surround it with enough white space so that the eye is drawn to reading that or looking at that. If you just have huge lists of text, you don't know what to read first. You don't know what's important. So and when it comes to designing a website and getting something laid out properly, it's good to have a professional do that. The last thing you want to do is look like Craigslist, where it's like, oh God, I'm just looking at this massive list and I don't even know where I fit. So your website's not Craigslist, and it's not just a huge inventory of things. You want people to be drawn in and go, oh wow, they can solve my problem. Great, here's where I need to go.
Right, make things pretty clear and upfront on the homepage. I know that whenever, as everyone on the call has probably seen, because they registered, on the new IAPD site, that, I know when we were going through the redesign process that I think you even mentioned to us, you can put more on the homepage now. It doesn't have to be, so long as you've got, your white space and that kind of thing. Did you tell me that homepages tend to be like people are willing to scroll down to see the rest of what's on there?
Yeah. Actually, there's a heat monitor that they did a lot of testing in regards to where people spend the most time, like where they're actually looking at your homepage most often. The very, very top is actually blue, and the red, like the where people look most, as far as it's like a little heat sensor thing. So the where people spend the most time is about like just under the fold. So people actually spend more time reading stuff that's under the fold than they do right at the top. So don't be scared to put stuff underneath that scroll down, because one of the first things people do just automatically when they go to a new site is they scroll down. So that's just where they end up looking.
Yes, and to clarify for some people who may not know on the call, under the fold means when they have to, at some point on the screen, when they have to scroll.
Right.
Yes. Okay. All right, good question. Next one. When you get a negative review, would you recommend posting a response below it? For example, XYZ Plastics took a long time to deliver my product. Response: we apologize for the delay in freight. We use third-party logistics and cannot control their processes once the material leaves our warehouse. Would that be acceptable, and should they do that?
Yeah. So if someone does post something negative on your site, you do have control over the reviews as to whether or not you actually make them visible, well, depending upon how your website builds. But most times when reviews it's your choice to post them on the site or not. Yes, for sure, you should post them, and definitely you should post how you resolved it. It just makes everybody. Everybody knows people make mistakes, and so. But if you've done something about it and you've solved their problem, then people can go, oh yeah, they messed up, but they did something about it, and that's great. The last thing you want to do though is you don't really want to be pointing fingers and say, well, yeah, sorry about that. It wasn't really our fault though. No one really wants to hear that. They want to be heard, and they want to just get the problem solved. So pointing fingers isn't probably the best way to go about it, but just knowing that the problem was solved is enough for someone.
Okay. And kind of same thing with, even on social media, I know that like one time someone couldn't get a hold of somebody here at IAPD. I think they were interested in membership, and they posted to our Facebook page, and that clearly got our attention. And I definitely said, I'm so sorry, I haven't been able to reach us, et cetera. But I think it goes kind of beyond the website reviews as well as if someone posts something to your social media, not necessarily delete it or hide it per se, but again, I think respond in a way of how you helped them, would you say?
Of course, yeah. And there's a lot of tools out there that will actually help you monitor social platforms as well as, your own things. So there's what's called social listening tools. So what you can do, and there's Google Alerts too, which is kind of a different thing, but what you can do is you can make sure that if someone posted something bad about you online, like for instance, say they get a part and it's wrong, and so they post on Twitter, oh yeah, I got a post from XYZ company, and they totally machined it, awful, I can't even believe it, I can't even work it, now I've got to work the weekend, and they're basically ranting on social media about you. Unless they tag you, you don't even know they're doing that. Mm-hmm. So what the social media listening tools can do is they'll alert you when someone's talking about you, so that you can go back to that user and go, oh no, I'm so sorry, is there some way that we can help? And what's kind of interesting about those social listening tools is you can use them from your advantage as well. So not just damage control, but if someone's posting about, UHMW and, oh, how do you fab this stuff, or, whatever, so you can put tags on certain keywords so that if someone's posing questions online, you can be the person to answer so that, does anyone know what the impact resistance is of acrylic or whatever, and then you can be, oh, I know, here you go, and oh, by the way, you can buy it here. So you can use social listening tools for not only damage control, but also to promote yourself.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I was going to say, because if they're not tagging you, then at least you could tag keywords and be able to kind of listen in that way. What would you say is a good social listening tool? Are there like any good free options or anything?
There's tons of them out there. But if you're totally, I mean, there's tons of different out there. I honestly don't know any names of them off the top of my head. But I use Google Alerts a lot for that. That basically will send you news stories. So, but there's different platforms that you can use depending upon what you're using from an ERP standpoint or a CRM program. There's ones incorporated with those that you can use, or there's just free ones that you can use online too. So
just do a quick Google social media listening tool.
Yeah, and it depends on what kind of CRM or ERP system you're using too. And if you want to tie that in all together so it's all on one platform, you can do that as well.
Okay, and what would you say is the best software to connect all your social media together so when it's posted, it's all consistent?
I don't necessarily like using all of those platforms. The only reason is, like if you take Hootsuite, for instance, Hootsuite's great if you want to just like put a post out there like, oh, you're going to be at trade show, whatever, our booth number is this, and you just want to kind of put it all out there as one message, and it's just the same over everything. It has drawbacks though, because if you don't actually log into the separate accounts on their own, how things will come up in your feed will be different. For instance, if you're on Facebook and you post a picture while you're on Facebook, the picture will come up. But if you're on Instagram and you post to Facebook, it won't show the picture. It'll just show the link to the picture. So it just makes it less engaging. People are that much more prone to look at your post if you've got a picture on. I think it's like 80% or something engagement increase.
Right.
So yeah, so it's best if you can go onto the different platforms separately rather than just posting from one of those software accounts, because all it's going to show is a link to the picture instead of the actual picture.
Right.
So like Hootsuite's great. I like using it. It's free. I think it's free up to 5 social accounts. And it's good for if you wanted to post something and schedule it in the future. It used to be that with Facebook and Twitter you couldn't post and then schedule it for later. Now you can do that, but before, when Hootsuite first started, they were the sort of inventor of being able to post and schedule things for later on, which is great from a trade show perspective because you can basically post the whole time, oh, it's great, come, we've got a great catalog for you and all these things, and you're working the booth the whole time without having to actually sign into the platform. So.
Right. Well, I know you also kind of have to be careful, too, because, like for us, for example, we can, when we send an email to everyone, we can share it on social media, and then you can have Facebook linked to Twitter, but, you almost have to be careful that you're not double posting things, and that you're only choosing almost like either a overarching, social media or kind of like you said, like individually doing it.
Yeah, that's a big mistake a lot of people make. They don't realize that when they're posting on their blog that it's automatically posting on their Facebook or their Twitter or whatever, and then all of a sudden you've got like 18 posts of the exact same thing on the one page.
Yep.
So, it's just managing that.
All right, we've got lots of questions. Another one is, we've been wondering how much of our print money to shift to digital programs. What is the standard?
The standard. There is no standard. It's the rules that are meant to be broken. Honestly, it just depends on your target market. If you're selling to the guys up north and you know that they're all sitting around the coffee table at the end of the day and they're picking up the magazine, great. If your target market is super savvy and they're all engineers and they're all sitting on the web, then you're going to have to make a shift. So really identifying with your target market, talk to your sales guys, ask them what magazines are on this guy's desk. Are there any magazines on this guy's desk? Is he always on his phone? Really understanding your customer is how you can determine where you should be spending your money. So, and you can do the old things as far as print goes. You can do the old things. You can put QR codes or, new line 100 numbers, all those kinds of things to be able to track stuff. I like digital just because I can track it, and I know how much money I'm getting out of things a lot easier than, back in the day where you just kind of threw your money out there and, half of it's working, half of it's not, really not sure what half. So just looking at your target market, what they're using, what they're not using is really key as far as where you should be budgeting things.
Okay. Do you have a favorite third-party digital marketing optimization consultant? or can you recommend one?
I don't. I personally just use a lot of the tools myself to be able to go through and do it. There's lots of companies out there, though, that will do an audit for you. Even using the Google Webmaster tool, there's a great like site checker. If you just Google site checker, it will probably come up from Google, and you just put your website link in there, and it will give you this report, and it will tell you, your site speed's horrible, you're missing keywords, you don't have any meta tags, and your mobile site is horrible. Like, it will tell you. So, and if you want a really in-depth thing, there's lots of companies out there that can do analysis of your website.
Okay. We had someone, I can maybe share this in our follow-up email, but when we were talking about social media listening tools, I got a website sent in to me, but that is brandwatch.com. If anyone wanted to go, it's 10 free social media monitoring tools. So maybe if you did a quick Google for that, or I can share that link later. But another question for you. Let's see here. What about the unique issues of custom molders? We don't have off-the-shelf products. Our customer owns their tooling and their part design. We mold and assemble their parts and manage their supply chain.
So manufacturers and distributors and molders, so we all have our own customers, and we all have our own individual problems and ways we can service our market. When it comes to a molder, promoting yourself to be, I'm trying to think of what the question is really.
Yeah, maybe if that person can clarify for us.
I'm not sure if your question is just like how you can promote yourself, or what really the problem is, but when someone is selling for you, basically making it easier for people. So from a molding standpoint, when people own their own molds, what do they want to do? They want to have a lot of turns with their mold. They want to be able to use it a lot of times, so you want to promote that. So thinking about how you're solving people's problems, or basically thinking about what it is that's going to benefit them the most by using you, is what you want to put in the forefront. So I don't know if that's answering the question or not. But when it comes to manufacturing, I'm sure there's a lot of companies that aren't necessarily selling direct, but even from a manufacturer's rep standpoint, you want to make people proud to sell your product, and you want to make it easy for them to sell your product. So if you're not promoting yourself and you're not putting sales tools out there for them to use, it's a whole lot easier for the manufacturer's reps, and it's a whole lot easier for distributors to sell product that's promoted well and is easy to sell, that they understand clearly, than it is for a distributor or a manufacturer's rep to sell stuff that is confusing, or just looks dated, or doesn't look trustworthy, or doesn't have the information for them to be able to sell it well.
Right. Can you go, let's see, back to the molder question. Hold on. He was wondering specifically how the e-commerce and online ordering strategies and statistics would apply.
So I'm not sure if he's selling his molds online. I don't think he'd be able to, because everything is custom. You could have a situation where you allow someone to build their own mold online and be able to enter in dimensions and things like that. I don't know how complicated your mold would end up being. Obviously, we're not injection molders, so it's a little bit different. Mm-hmm. But you can have places where people can upload drawings. McMaster has some interesting software for that. It's obviously expensive, so you can have people engaging in that way. So from an e-commerce standpoint, it might be a little bit different from you. Or if they're wanting to get you to mold something using the mold that you've got in stock, it could be a repurchase situation where you have a database online, and someone can basically reorder something that you're producing for them, and make it easier for them in that way.
Got it. Angela, can you go back to your slide that had, I know we've talked about this a couple times, the like overarching, like a Hootsuite or something that you can, those social, yes, this one.
Yeah.
Is it marketing automation? They were just curious what some of the tools were that they could post once and then hit the many different social media platforms. So if this is it.
Yeah, so some of them are different. So like HubSpot is, like I said, some of them are really expensive. Like they're a few $1,000s a month. So it's a big investment, yeah. But some of them are really robust in the fact that they'll help you write content. So for instance, keywords matter from building a website, building content in your site. What HubSpot will do is it does a diagnostic on your website and what you do, and give suggestions for keywords that people actually search. So like a lot of search engine companies might be phoning you and going, oh, we can make you #1 on Google, but if no one's searching for elephant shoes, it really doesn't matter if you come up #1 or not. It's important to use keywords on your site that people actually search for. Right. And sometimes, and there's tools that you can, there's a Google tool that you can use to see what search terms people are using and what people aren't. So, so for instance, if you think that everyone's typing in, polyethylene, then you can actually see in your territory how many people are actually searching for that word and whether or not you should be using that word in your content to come up in search. So what HubSpot does, or what a lot of these marketing automation things do, is it knows what keywords people are actually using and will help you write the content to make sure that you're using those keywords in the right way and with the right percentage. And it will also help schedule social things. It will suggest, oh, you haven't done this in a while, make sure you do this. It'll help with newsletters and e-newsletters and basically copying that data from one platform to another. So, I mean, there's still work involved. Automation is kind of a bad word. I don't know why they really call it marketing automation, because there's still work involved. It's not like it just automatically posts for you. You still have to write a lot of things yourself, obviously. What you have to be careful with it, some of them do, is they'll automatically reply for you on some things, which kind of can be scary, because you'll notice sometimes on Twitter there'll be an automatic response if someone tags a company. Like Starbucks does this, and Coca-Cola and the really big guys. So if you tag Starbucks, it'll automatically reply, oh, thank you so much, I'm glad you like our product. Except that's really bad when someone's saying something negative about you, and right. The first thing you're replying is, oh, that's great, thanks so much. So, you have to be careful with the marketing automation things, because sometimes they can be a disservice when you're not looking genuine.
Very true. Okay, real quickly, Angela, I wanted to ask you, so we kind of talked briefly, you mentioned, maybe if someone doesn't have a marketing department. I know that that's one thing here. Even when we were redesigning the IAPD website, it was, if we have members out there who don't have dedicated marketing staff, or they don't have, the big marketing budget, what are ways that we could even help provide them with tools to go out to their customers? So, real quick IAPD plug. Everyone had to log in to the site to register for today's webinar, so hopefully you, got to browse through and see the new design. But we also have a section on the site for member resources specifically about marketing tools, and that's really like our plastics technical resources to help you, go out there and talk about plastics and promote plastics and that kind of thing. But like our top 26 markets and that sort of thing. But what I was going to say is maybe like a quick couple of tips for people who are either working on a really small budget or just don't really have dedicated marketing staff. I know that you mentioned on LinkedIn, like if they can kind of look like the expert and kind of respond to those questions that are being posted out there, that in itself is selling them without spending any money, right?
Right.
Okay.
I mean, it's really, when it comes to a lot of things, when it comes in regards to marketing, it's time or money. So if you don't have any money, you have to devote the time. It's just the way it is. So, most of what I do and what I know isn't it's just because I spent the time to know it, right? Right. So, and when it comes to having, not having much of a budget, there's the key things you really want to have. You want to have a website, and there's there's free websites out there if you have a Wix website or those quick little publishing things. There's lots of ways for you to have a quick free website online that can look pretty decent. WordPress is a great thing that's free. It's like I said, time consuming to develop really well, but tons of people are using WordPress to develop websites. So it doesn't necessarily have to cost that much money from that standpoint. And writing content can cost money if you have someone else doing it for you. But if you're willing to devote the time, that doesn't necessarily have to cost you any money either.
Right.
And like you said with IAPD, with participating in the association's campaigns like the Green Scene thing and making sure that's on your website and making sure that's on your email signatures and things like that will help better boost the industry perception from us all having that there, so people go, oh, I see this green thing everywhere. Where is it? So it's going to just expand the reach the more people are using it. Plus people sharing information that you're posting as well. So, if everybody on this webinar retweeted something that IAPD had on their site, you can imagine how much that's going to expand the reach.
Right.
So as far as, social media accounts that are usually the most beneficial for B2B companies, I would say LinkedIn and Twitter would be the top two to devote time on. And like I said, the first and foremost thing being your website.
Right, because when they're posting, they want to be linking back to their site.
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, when you do post a lot of things, especially there's lots of people that will like another article or will retweet someone else's article, but it's the biggest benefit if you write the article yourself, post it, and post a header or a update that resonates with people, and then it goes back to your site. That's the goal most of the time, right? Is so that someone's actually coming to you. Mm-hmm. But that's not, that's a lot of content to write. But
right,
yeah.
Well, you know about that. Angela, you're, like I mentioned, super active in IAPD and, write for the magazine and write for our newsletters and things. So it's right up your alley. You're out there. You can be you can speak to that firsthand.
Writing is fun.
Yes. Well, we love it. It's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for presenting today. And I know we have lots of questions. I just had one more pop in, so Angela, if you have time to take one more question.
Sure.
Okay. How do you feel about Google+? We're investing heavily to build our Google+ presence.
Okay, so Google+, it's changed a lot over the last 5 years. When it first came out, it was sort of, there was a big joke that nobody used it. There's a ton of users on Google+, and what's weird is that the amount of users is a little bit, there's a bit of a misconception, because with the way that Google+ works is you almost have to have an account to have a Gmail account and to be able to use all those things. So, but it's great. There's a lot of people using it. It's kind of like the Google version of Facebook. There's not as many people on Google+ as there is on Facebook. But, going back again, if it's your target market that's on Google+, great, and identify with them. There's lots of engagement tools with Google+, lots of chats, and there's lots of groups that you can join and things like that. So kind of the same grouping thing that that LinkedIn has, where you can join certain groups and certain special interest groups. So that's a lot of ways that you can engage with people. And one of the biggest things with Google+ is it lets you group your friends, so you can group people into different industries. So say you dealt with different industries like the medical industry and the construction industry, and you only wanted to post something that was only to those medical industry people, then you can segment that so that only those people are getting that message. So that's a good feature that Google+ has. Yeah, like I said, it really has to do with you engaging with people as well. So making sure that you're, looking for people and groups that you can make suggestions to and be active with and answer questions with. Right.
So the Google+ community right now is probably more business focused, kind of like LinkedIn is, would you say, than like a, more than like informal on Facebook?
Yeah, well, because a lot of people are using Google Docs, right? They're using Google Drive. They're using those tools from a business standpoint, so they just happen to be logged into their Google account, and that's why that's happening.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, just a quick reminder, here in about an hour, all of you will receive a survey about the presentation. So please complete that. It helps us plan future webinars. Once you've completed the survey, you will get a link to Angela's slides with all the questions. I think that means that everyone's going to want to have a deck of that in there on their desktop. And I'll also send out the recording. So we'll have a copy of the presentation, the audio of that as well. So anyway, I would like to once again thank you, Angela. Thank you for presenting, and thank everyone else for being on the call. IAPD has webinars each month, so go to the website, iapd.org, and check out upcoming dates and times. All right. Thank you all, and
thanks, everybody.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.
All right.